My real name that I was born with is Sven Kribavats. My Islamic name is Sayyid Yassin Rashid. Now you might wonder how it comes that I'm a convert and a Sayyid, so we get to that, inshallah. I was born and raised in Berlin, Germany, for 20 years. Most of my life I was raised by my grandmother and my aunt. Less with my mom. I didn't have quite the best relationship with my mother throughout my childhood. So therefore I kind of was really attached to my grandmother, so I stayed with her mostly. And she was the one who raised me God conscious and religious, I would say. Since my early childhood, I would say 5, 6 years old, I remember every night before going to sleep, she said, pray to God, you know, in the name of Jesus, the Holy Son. I don't know anymore how it was, and the funny thing was, even though I was raised in a Christian family and we went to church on Sundays and everything, which I remember, to just bring it up here right now, it was quite a cold atmosphere, not very welcome, you know, everything made of stone and brick and, you know. So, but we went there, and even though I was raised in a Christian background, I never was raised with the idea or had the idea of Trinity. That never came into my mind, that God is three. Somehow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this fitra in me, like I had that my entire childhood on that Allah is one. And we do not perceive Him, we do not know, like you cannot point at Him. He's without space and place, like, you know, you don't know where God is. God is just there. It's everywhere basically, you know? Like the concept of Allah. That was already in me. And I kind of felt, I remember, that somebody is watching me. Like I felt watched constantly. And so I had, from early on, I built a relationship to God. Talking to Him, I guess, when I was sad. Well, when it comes to celebrating Christian holidays, especially I'm born on Christmas Day, actually, 25th of December. So it was quite always birthday and Christmas. You get one gift, you know. So, but the thing is that no, it was quite nice. Like we always met at my grandmother's house. She cooked and everything and baked. It was pretty nice. We had a pretty healthy, comfortable family get-together, family life. So it was a nice upbringing in that sense, and I'm really thankful to these three women that raised me. Even though I didn't have the best relationship with my mom, which now through Islam I try to be more there for my mother and try to, even though it's still hard, but you know, have a stronger connection with her, inshallah. Unfortunately, my grandmother died about 4 years ago, and my aunt just 2 years ago. And I kind of feel empty now when I go back to Germany. I have a sister there from my mom's side, but a different father, which also embraced Islam in the beginning and then left it again. I remember one time I came to her place and I saw the Quran there, and she was 16 years old. I'm like, what's the Quran doing here? And she's like, yeah, I converted. I'm like, oh. So through her boyfriend that she had, and then unfortunately they didn't marry, so she kind of left it again. But still, I love her very much, and yeah, she's a great person. I was raised by my grandmother mostly, and I was raised without a father. Okay, my entire life, my family, until I was 14, and my aunt actually told me otherwise. I was told that my father died. Okay, my mom and dad got married. Islamically, they met in Berlin. He came as a student for architecture, okay? So, and he met my mom through friends, I guess. And she's from Bosnia, I mentioned that, right? My mom is from Bosnia, my dad from Iraq. So he heard a lot of good things about my mom, so he wanted to then, you know, get to know her, and they got married. I saw the pictures, they had a nikah and everything, Islamically. And just about within the first year, she got pregnant. And just short before she gave birth, they separated. They had a divorce. But he kept calling my grandmother, asking, is my son born yet? Is my son born? Is he here yet? And my mom, she got scared as she told me that he will take me away from her. So she said to my grandmother, next time when he calls, tell him that the child died. Okay, so she did that. And he left thinking that I'm dead. As I found out later, a friend of his told him, no, they lied to you, you have a son, right? But as I know now, he was scared to come after me. He didn't want to get involved with police, or didn't want to, he was scared of that, so he let it go. I remember asking my mom my entire life about him, because I wanted to know my identity, what is my other half? I said, what's his name, where's he from, this, that. And she always gave me like bits and pieces, like his name is Fakhri Aldin Rashid Ibrahim, he's from Iraq, his birthday was somewhat in May, like very little things, and I couldn't do anything with that, I couldn't rhyme anything together on that. And she said one time, there's a famous mall, it's called some Europe Mall or something in Berlin, and she said, he saw you when you were 4 years old, we passed him by and he was hiding. I never believed her though, but he told me later, yeah, it's true, because he was scared to come after me, he didn't want to get in trouble. And I never believed her actually. And I remember it was really hard on me as a child, being without a father. Like I always wanted a father figure, and I wanted to know, what do I have from him? What is my second half, right? And I remember in kindergarten, once I sat on the ground, I was maybe like 4 or 5 years old, and I listened to, there was some keyboard or something that had automated music, and it was some sad music, and I got really emotional, and I was on the floor, I kneeled down, and I had tears in my eyes. I looked up in the sky, I was like, where is he? Like, I want to know where my father is. And my mom, she had her wedding picture with my dad framed in a plate, like, as they did the picture framed in a plate. And my stepfather, the father of my sister in Germany, that I have the same mother with, he got jealous and he broke it. He smacked it on the ground. What happened is, the whole plate broke except one piece, the face of my father. Okay, just the face remained. This was the only piece I had to imagine what my father looks like. This was like a treasure to me. Okay, I still have that picture. And so this was, this part of my life. And my grandmother always used to say, inshallah one day, she's a strong Christian. She's like, God willing, one day when you're older, we will buy you a ticket and you go to Baghdad and you look for him. And I remember there was this cartoon, Sinbad, and he goes to Baghdad all the time. So I always imagined that I will go with a ship, like a Sinbad ship. I go to Baghdad, right? It was funny. As a child, you imagine these things. So, and until I was 14, my family told me, no, he died, we don't know where he is, right? They probably wanted to quiet me down because of my stepfather, because he was actually a quite bad guy. So then when I was 14, my aunt, which is really, really a great woman, she's not a Muslim, but honestly, even in her last days of life, she was very patient, like you would expect from a good mu'minah. May Allah, inshallah, grant her mercy. And she told me, no, you know what, your father is probably still alive, but we don't know where he is, right? So they lied to you the whole time. So this was quite a shock for me, and obviously I had hope as well. So it was around 14. So when I was 16 years old, I had a friend, a Turkish friend, Ferhat. His father had a big company for fruits and vegetables, a fruits and vegetables wholesale company. And I worked there, I would say 6 days a week from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. in the morning. And if I look back, I don't know how I did it. Like every day the same thing. And I had to walk, and then with the bus, and then take night bus and everything. And so at that work, there was a Muslim brother, Sami. Okay, at that time this guy was like, even though I wouldn't say he's not nice, but at that time I really loved him. I really liked him, like his appearance. He was very friendly. He had, you know, bushy beard, and he looked nice. You know, like not like Wahhabi beardish, but like it was how you say, he took very care of himself. And I saw him pray once in a while, you know, and then he asked me, he's like, so where are you from? I said, my dad is from Iraq, my mom from Bosnia, my dad from Iraq. He's like, oh, your dad is Arab? I said, yeah. He's like, where's your dad? I said, I don't know. I don't have a father. I can't tell you. He's like, what do you mean you have a father? I never met him. Like, this is what it is. I told him the story. He's like, that's not acceptable. We got to do something about that. I said, okay, what? He's like, well, I know a man. His name is Abd al-Jabbar. I'll talk to him. Maybe he can help find your father. I said, it would be great. So we ended up meeting that Abd al-Jabbar. So we went to this brother, and I was 16, a pretty shy and quiet guy, you know. So, and he looked like I would describe a Taliban today, you know, turban and long beard and la la la, you know. But I remember I was in his house. I came twice to his place, and we drove. After this, we went out and we drove around. What we did, the picture that I had of my dad's face, we copied it in a larger scale, and we went from place to place, like from Iraqi cafes, I don't know, stuff like that. So we asked around, do you know this guy, do you know this guy? So we tried to find him. When I Googled about my father, and I didn't even know his proper name, I couldn't find anything. I was looking, architect, Rashid, or something like that, right? I remember, and I couldn't find anything about him. So time passed by, 17, 18, around that time. I went to we had a youth center called Fuchsbau. It's like the foxhole or something. It was a huge building. In Germany in the past, it was meant to be for the Hitler Youth. But anyway, they restored it and made it a youth center. So we did rap music there. Okay, me and some other guys. So I was one of the rappers. And the guy in charge, he always changed the people around him, like singers, rappers, etc. So he had one guy there, Serkan, his name. He was a singer, beautiful voice, half Pakistani, half Turkish, long hair. You know, he looked like a goof to me at that time. I was like, who's this guy, man? Like, you know, I was annoyed by his presence somehow. I don't know. It was really bad, astaghfirullah. But you know, I kind of in the beginning, I think I don't know. I don't like that guy. So what happened is I used to write poetry, right? I have it until now, German poetry. I had the talent of writing in a really nice old German style. I kind of lost that now, but so it was a pretty deep poetry that I wrote, right? So one day, I don't know how, we were walking, and I had my poetry book with me, and the Serkan, he came and he was kind of curious. He's like, what is that? I said, my poetry book. He said, really, you write poetry? I said, yeah. So he read it. He's like, mashallah, brother, this is very beautiful, you know, very beautiful stuff that you write. I said, really? And this was kind of the common ground we had. And I realized this guy is not so bad. He's a really nice guy, right? So we became, from this day on, we became the closest friends you can imagine. Like, you know, obviously it built up over time, over small time, but we became very, very close, like constantly together, like shadow and body, you know, really. Until now, he's one of my best friends. And he was a Sunni Muslim. At that time, not very religious. And I have to say, quick to this, I kind of, when I look back, I had a lot of Muslim friends in my life. Hashim was one guy from Albania. Super nice guy, but not guided. But he was a Muslim. Another guy, Untung from Indonesia, also super nice, but also not very religious. So I kind of think Allah had me with some people, but then He parted my way with them because, you know, maybe they weren't the right people. But with Serkan, somehow it got stuck, because Serkan is a very strong and sincere person, right? Like he says, I do this, that's it. You know, if there's something haram, it's haram. We scratch it off the list. Like he's very strong personality. So I needed somebody like that. So Serkan started in that time to become more religious. And as that progressed with him, he took me along this way. So through our friendship, we became closer and closer. So, for example, one day, like he taught me a lot about Islam. For example, that we believe in all the prophets, which I didn't know, right? And I think many Christians don't know that we believe in Jesus alayhi salam, and Abraham alayhi salam, Moses alayhi salam. I didn't know. I thought always Islam is a religion that hates Christianity or that disrespects these prophets. I didn't know this is all one. When I started to know that and understand that, I realized God's religion, Allah's religion is one line, and people deviated from that. So it all made sense. It's all about really making logical sense in your mind. And this was one strong point, right? So as we talked more and more about Islam, I felt Islam entered my heart more and more. But I said to myself, you know what? I want to read the Quran first. I want to know how to pray. So when I do the Shahada, I can dive right into it and start. Like from, I pray and everything. But what happened is, one day we were sitting, there was still something missing, and I get to that point now. We were sitting at my work at that fruit company in the middle of the night, I don't know, 2 o'clock or something in the morning, and we're discussing. And I always say this was an inspiration by Allah. Seriously, because it just hit me like a lightning, boom. I was like, oh. I thought to myself, and it's something very simple actually, but this was the main key for me to really accept, to recognize Islam as the truth, or at least the other religion as false. I said, at the time of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, his companions and all that, how did they pray? Because me as a Christian, I was taught, in the name of God, the Holy Son, etc., etc., and you crucify yourself. Right? So I say, okay, we do this. Why? Because Nabi Isa alayhi salam was crucified, apparently, to Christian belief. But at the time that he was alive, he wasn't crucified. So how did they pray? They must have prayed differently, right? So just this small logical click, made me realize, hey, there's something wrong with our religion. How did they pray at the time of Nabi Isa alayhi salam? They couldn't have prayed like that. So that means Christians changed something in their religion. So if you change something, it's not pure anymore. So why shall I follow something that's not pure, right? This was really like the main click that and then with all the other things that I heard, it kind of expanded in my chest, the love for Islam, the understanding. But I kind of also, as I said, I wanted to jump right into it, and I kind of was like hesitant, I'm not going to do it yet. So, and also because of family and all that, like what they're going to say. And I think this is one fear that most converts have, that if they convert, you're going to sacrifice a lot. Friends, family, habits. But you know what? It's worth it. Allah is the one who is in charge of everything in your life. And He's going to take care of everything. Like with the story of Nabi Ayub alayhi salam. He took away his family and He gave him double after his patience. Allah is the one who gives, and Allah is the one who takes. So we shouldn't be scared of any sacrifice. And I think that's the main problem that many face, Even with Sunnis converting to Shia Islam, change, sacrifice, what's going to happen. But if we do tawakkul in Allah, everything will be fine. That's what I believe. And so what happened is, one day we were at a friend's house, Tim, this guy I know since we were 6 years old, until now, he was my neighbor. So we were chilling at his house. And Serkan came up to me, he's like, yo, Sven, today is the first day of Ramadan. Do you want to fast with us? I said, how can I fast with you? I'm not a Muslim. He's like, well, we can make you a Muslim right now. I said, how? Because I thought you have to go and be baptized and I don't know what. I said, no. Very simple. Say, you believe in Allah? You believe that Allah is the only God? I say, yes. Do you believe that Prophet Muhammad is the last prophet? I say, yes. He said, then speak after me, right? So he spoke the Shahada and I spoke after him. And I became Muslim on the first day of Ramadan, about 14 years ago. And I even we wrote down, we were so excited, we wrote down the time and everything. It was 3 p.m. and 33 minutes, 333, right? So kind of, it's also a significant number. So I always look out for these things, So, and I became Muslim, and I remember when I converted, or reverted, I felt light like a feather. Really, I really remember this. I felt light like a feather. Because they say when you revert, all your sins are forgiven. You have a blank sheet in front of you, right? So basically, when I was 20 years old, we were deciding to going on this trip to Turkey. And at that time, internet wasn't really yet, like internet was a new thing. So I didn't really quite often check my mail, right? Because my cousin from the Switzerland called me. And she said, hey, Sven, how are you? And she never calls me though. Like I was surprising. I said, why is she calling me? It's not a bad thing though, but you know, she's like, did you receive my email? I said, what email? Because you know, I never checked my email at that time. So it's not like something now you do. She said, I met a man in the internet who claims to be your father and he's looking for you. After 20 years, I get this message. I met a man in the internet who claims to be your father and he's looking for you. Do you want contact with him? I said, hell yeah. Since I was 16, I'm looking for him. Of course. And I was just quite baffled. I'm like, how come, right? So I said, sure. And it felt like, I always say, really, it felt like he just dropped from the heavens down. Boom, he was right there. Because I remember I always used to pray to Allah. I said, Ya Allah, even if I die on that day, or my father, I want to see him on that day. If it's either of our last day on this earth, I want to just see him. I want to know who he is. I want to relate to him. I want to know what's my other half, right? And the thing is, as I say, when this happened, that I found my dad, it was like Allah didn't give me a new page, as people say there's a new page in my life. He gave me a complete new book. Yeah, see, when I found my father and I moved to Canada a year after, so I found him when I was 20. When I was 21, I moved to Canada because I wanted to get certain things done before I go. I came as a Sunni brother, obviously, into a Shia family. And I know these people from Ammar, this blind guy, they used to tell me, you know, inshallah, they're Iraqi? Yeah. Maybe they're Shia. Take care. I say, what do you mean? Take care of the Shia, you know? And this and that. They do kufr and la la la. And, you know, they tell you all these weird stories about Shia. And, you know, they go in the masjid, they close the lights, and then they have God knows what with the woman, astaghfirullah, these kind of weird stuff. You know, you hear this all the time. And so they kind of scared me. They spooked me really, like, you know, it's like, oh, you know. It's like, inshallah, you make them Sunni. I said, yeah, inshallah, I make them Sunni. So I went there. I went to Vancouver and met my family. And the first thing after we arrived home, you know, I see they did Salat al-Shukr, and I see everybody with turba and they're doing kunut. I'm like, Allahu Akbar, they're Shia. What should I do now, you know? I was kind of weirded out. And then I remember we used to go to masjid, to this Masjid Zahra for Jummah Salat. And it was quite different from what I've seen in Germany. And I seen they do kunut in their salat and all these things I didn't understand. I'm like, what the heck are they doing? So I was so weirded out, I didn't want to come anymore. So I stopped going with my dad to Jummah Salat. And he kind of got worried. He saw on TV, you know, all the news, what's happening with all the bombings, even at that time. That was quite long ago. And so he kind of like, you know, in his mind, probably thought, oh man, maybe my son is one of them, you know? And then we kind of got in a small argument, you know? And then he said, you're a Sunni, you're going to kill us all. I said, no. He's like, no, and blah, why are you not coming with us to masjid and this and that? And, you know, I understand he's from the older generation. Maybe he doesn't really know how to approach somebody, even especially someone he hasn't seen for 20 years, right? So I don't blame him for that. But my older brother Samir, which is the closest of my siblings to me, and we kind of quite look alike, you know? So he's quite a gem, this brother. Yeah. First time I saw him on the picture, I remember the first thing I noticed was the nur in his face. Really, this guy looks like a moon, mashallah. So, and I said to my dad, who's he? He's like, he's your you know, brother, he's very spiritual. I remember my mom used to tell me always that you have an older brother, his name is Samir. And I also used to imagine how he looks like, right? I would never imagine we look alike. Like, he's blonde and blue-eyed, so I'm brown and brown-haired, but just change that and you have me. We look the same. So, and the thing is, he was the one with sabr, with patience and love, who quite introduced Shia Islam to me, little by little, very little by little. And at the time when I came to Vancouver, it was just 6 months visiting period, because I didn't have Canadian papers. And then after 6 months, I had to go back to Germany. And then I stayed there for a while, like let's say 2-3 weeks, and I came back to Canada. 6 months stay in Canada, go back to Germany. And it went always back and forth, because We missed the date of getting the paperwork done for me because it's up to a certain age that I already passed, so we couldn't get the paperwork done through my father. So I had no other choice but going back and forth. So throughout this time, my brother slowly introduced to me Shia Islam. Salat al-Layl was for me like an unimaginable treasure. Something like he taught me that prayer and many other prayers that you do by night. And I used to really pray it every night, alhamdulillah. Now not anymore, inshallah, well, I will get back to that. But it really builds a strong connection between you and Allah. Like while everybody sleeps, you're awake with your Lord alone. That's like the best thing ever, the best feeling ever. Maybe you put on a candle, you know, like create that atmosphere. And so I was back at my brother's house, and he knew of my waswas issues. So he saw me in salat, I move around and I shake my head and I go crazy because I don't know, right? I still don't have that knowledge of, you know, like I always thought Allah's angry with me for some reason, right? Which was, I mean, Allah's Rahman. So he watched me and he said, brother, what you're doing is crazy. We have to do something about that. That's not normal, you know? So I don't know what to say, right? I said, I wish, I hope for help. And it continued for I don't know how long. Until then one night, I was in my room alone, and I was sitting there after, I think, Isha Salat. And again, I just have this thing. I looked up in the sky and I remember I felt very lonely, very sad. I don't know why. All of a sudden I felt like there's no one in this world for me. Kind of, you know, after everything that happened, you go from this spot to that spot and back and forth, right? Even though I was with my family, but I didn't have any family of my own, right? I was just a guest in the house of my brother, even though he would have kept me for however long is needed. But you know what I mean? I felt very by myself. I have no one. And it was a really strong, sad feeling that I felt, you know? And that moment, I don't know how to explain that. I heard a voice, but not with my ears, with my heart. And it's not an imagination. I heard a clear voice telling me, I am there for you. And with that saying that I heard, like you heard these words, you heard these words, like really I heard them, but inside my heart. It filled my entire body with that saying. And some merciful feeling overcame me. And I just dropped down on the ground and I cried like I never cried in my entire life. And I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. And I was in sujood and cried and like really like unbelievable. And I don't know how long it was, for how many minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes, I don't know. And the next moment I felt like this overwhelming fear, as if I was told, if you move just a second, I can erase you just like that. So I kind of think maybe this was a message from Allah, you know, to see both sides, His mercy and His might, His power. That's how I explain it. I don't know. So I told my brother the same night I went to him, I told him about that, and he said, you know what, subhanAllah, you could have asked anything in that moment from Allah, I think. But every time I just mentioned it, I start crying again. So I knew it's something real. It's not something I imagined, right? There was Allah touched me with something. I don't know, and or maybe it was an angel. I have no idea. But you know, I know it was real. It was not an imagination. And the next day, my family is very much into Quran and istikhara and all these things. And there's a lot of spiritual things happening in my family throughout our line, you know. So my brother had this thing where he opens the Quran sometimes to ask Allah for guidance. So he did this thing with me. He opened the Quran to ask for some advice somehow, you know, for some answer. And subhanAllah, it came a verse from Surah Rum at the beginning. I forgot which ayah, but it's right at the beginning. Allah's promise, and Allah, somehow like that. Allah's promise, and Allah never breaks His promise. And this, what I just heard the night before, was a promise. I am there for you. So still, I haven't been yet complete Shia at that time. But it came, Muharram came again. And as a family, we used to listen to lectures online. from Sayyid Mustafa al-Kazwini. And so we heard stories about Karbala and everything. And then the first time since I became Muslim, I actually understood the difference between Sunni and Shia. Who is the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam? Who did they stand against, or who stood against them, right? And who's the rest of the people? Because it was Muslims who killed him. And when that understanding clicked, because I really, sometimes you hear something and you observe it and you know, you have it in front of you, but it doesn't click, it has to click. And it really clicked. I said, okay. And here's another thing. When that happened, again, I felt like light was entering my chest, and as if I saw the Ahlul Bayt. I don't know how to explain that, again. And from this day on, I can say this Shiaism in me was sealed. You know, I was Shia now, alhamdulillah, like from my belief.